tracks, trees, railway. Okay, and that concludes the presentation. Any questions from the audience?
What's the gameplay?
Hey everyone, it's Ollie from Mashup Games. I'm making a cozy adventure game where you travel around an island on your own little steam train. Now I've talked a lot about how I'm making the game, from the choice of engine to the railway system to the art style, but I haven't talked much about what the game is. And that's for good reason, for there's actually a big part of the game I haven't mentioned before. But we'll get into that later. For now, let's talk about the main part of the gameplay. Obviously, in a game about trains, you expect the gameplay to mostly revolve around driving the train. In Railway Life, you can indeed drive a train. While some train games offer more complex driving controls more similar to the real experience, instead this game will be going down the simple route. In this game, you simply can control the speed of the train, and you don't have to worry about brakes and handles and valves, oh my. I understand that people enjoy the more complex mechanics because being able to operate a train once you've learned the controls is quite a fulfilling experience where you feel a lot of power in what you're doing. Listen, I get it. I didn't like learning how to drive a car at first, but once I learned how to do it, I love it. It makes me feel so powerful. However, with these games, the act of driving the train is kind of all there is to do in the game. Whilst it will be the main mechanic of Railway Life, there will be a lot of other stuff the player can do when they're outside of the train. So I want the train driving to be a mechanic that still gives the player some control, but the controls themselves are simplified, so it's more accessible for players of all skill levels. How you drive the train started out with a slider-like control, where you move the dial further away from the middle to speed up in either direction. This is a pretty abstract method of control, as the player only needs one input to control the train's movement without having to worry about things like the brakes or hydraulics. Another thing this slider does have is a dead zone in the middle, since otherwise it would basically be impossible to stop the train. It's a pretty in the middle system for train control, because you won't be able to control things like, let me take a look here, injectors, blower valve, mechanical stoker controls and blowdown cocks? That one doesn't sound right. But you do get to manually control the speed of the train, which in its own way is an abstraction of the regulator and brake. But if that isn't simple enough, I think we can go one step further.
Simplify!
Now I would think the majority of people wouldn't actually care much about controlling the speed they're going in the game to such a granular extent that the slider is offering. So I've changed it out for an interface that has 3 different speed levels instead, and the player can switch between them. Personally, I find this easier to use, as you just need to press one button 3 times to move to full speed, and so this is going to be the default way to drive the train. I am however all for giving options, so I may make the slider an alternative driving option that the players can change to in the settings. And talking of moving around, let's move on to the next part. So you need a reason to travel around, right? It's all lovely just moving about, but every game needs something to strive for, or a goal to work towards. Otherwise, they're going to feel like they're just wandering aimlessly and get bored very quickly. And we'll be doing this in Railway Life through quests. These quests will not only be some short-term tasks to keep the player engaged, but they'll also offer rewards of some sort. Could be something as small as a bit of in-game currency, or as large as unlocking a new area of the game or progressing the story forwards. I want these quests to be a good medium of finding out more about the island and its characters, as it's a very good way to do interactive storytelling. But in its simplest form, quests will often have you doing the following 3 things: delivering cargo, transporting passengers, and so let's take a look at these quests, starting with delivering cargo. With this type of quest, you're essentially just taking resources from one place to another along the railway. I have an example quest like this set up already in the game, so let's take a look. So there's someone on the platform, let's talk to them. Okay, so it looks like they need some coal trucks at Hithermere. Let's enter the train, and then let's go forward so we can move on to the other side of the platform to collect the trucks. Nice, now that we're connected, we can make our way to Hithermere Station. And we've made it to Hithermere. Now we've reached the platform, let's come to a stop. And nice. Now the coal trucks disappear, and we've completed the quest. Well done us. Now that all looks fine and dandy as it is, but this quest alone has brought up so many questions that I need to find the answers to. Does the cargo spawn automatically on the end of the train when the quest starts? Can the player disconnect cargo during the quest? Is a player locked out of doing anything else other than the quest once it has started? If a resource is requested at a location by more than one quest, Does delivering the resource count towards one quest, or all of them? If delivering cargo can only progress one quest at a time, what is the priority of which quest is chosen? Does the quest require all the cargo to be delivered in one? So even something as simple on paper as take something from one place to another, it can raise so many questions that a game dev needs to think about and sort. Fortunately though, this all seems to revolve around one root question, where if I have the answer to that, it can solve a lot of these other things. Can the player connect and disconnect parts of their train? Do I allow the player to manually connect and disconnect parts of their train, or do I leave the management of what rolling stock is on the train to the game itself? On the one hand, if I give the player this ability, it gives them the freedom to attach whatever they want to the train. By default, you will have the engine and this van, and these will always be part of your train. But maybe you want to add more. Maybe you want a whole express worth of coaches, or a whole line of trucks and wagons just because you want to. That sounds great in theory, as giving the player more opportunity to play the game however they want to is one of the key focuses I have for this. But on the other hand, well, imagine you start a quest similar to the one I've just shown. You have to take coal trucks to a specific station. First off, where are the trucks? If the player can organise their own train, then they just need to get trucks to make the delivery. What if there are no trucks at the station the player is at? They've got to travel to another station to find some. What if these trucks are empty? Then the player needs to take these trucks to a place where they can be filled with coal. That's already 2 different places the player may need to travel to before even starting the journey to the target destination. Then you've got general overworld questions. What if you disconnect rolling stock anywhere in the world? Will it stay there when you return to that location, or will it despawn? How do you know where to find the rolling stock to attach? Then there's a whole mechanic of shunting around, and that's a whole other ordeal. By now it's clear that things would be a lot simpler if the player was only limited to the engine and the wagon, and other rolling stock is added exclusively through quests. It will streamline the act of doing quests by handling a lot of the setup for the player, and I don't have to deal with endless edge cases that comes with manually disconnecting parts of the train. And that's probably what I will do for now, choosing the simplest option first so I can progress with other areas of the game and then maybe re-evaluate this later down the line. Ha. Anyway, what were we talking about? Quests, yes, and the next type of quest is... If you're driving a train, the more common thing people expect when you do that is for people to ride on the train. I initially thought if the main game would revolve around taking passengers between stations, but what I didn't want to happen is players to feel limited on where they could go or what to do, if they were mainly taking passengers around and had to work to some timetable. So instead I've planned for passenger travel to be part of quests that are mostly randomly generated. When you arrive at a station, there may be a chance for one or a few passengers to be waiting on the platform. If you talk to them, they may ask if they could get a lift to a certain location. It's up to you if you accept, whether you are heading to that place anyway or want the reward, and if you do, then they hop on the train, probably in a carriage that will appear on the train, and then you can take them to wherever. Now different to the cargo quest, it will be that you can have many of these quests running simultaneously, so you can have a whole carriage or even multiple carriages full of passengers. And the third type of quest is, well, let me show you. So, what do you think of that? In Railway Life, you'll be able to build wooden decorations and models out of little blocks. It's an idea I had back when I even started working on Railway Life. I was contemplating whether a game about driving a train would be engaging enough for the player, and when trying to think of a good mechanic or minigame to keep the player engaged when travelling, the thought of a certain game found its way into my head somehow. A cozy life sim that came out on the Nintendo Wii in the mid to late 2000s, where you interact with quirky residents and move them in, and you give them things, go fishing, and can decorate your home. My Sims. In My Sims, you move into a town that's a bit run down, and your job is to rebuild it by building homes and furniture for people. How you build the furniture is in a similar way, with wooden blocks and blueprints. You could build a range of things from beds to sofas, from fridges to bookshelves, from TVs to whatever this is. Not only that, you can use the same mechanic to build new homes for the residents to move into. And what's great about My Sims is that not only do you get to shape the town in your own image and see your creations in the world, but your creations also further the storylines of the people in the town. I want to take that into Railway Life, a real sense of community among the islanders, and a way for you to shape the future of the island through your creations. And funnily enough, this is actually the first thing I ever worked on. Here, I have proof. The first footage I ever took was on the 11th of January 2023. The system was quite rudimentary back then, and you can notice that in certain areas like the placement and the camera, but it was a great start. I haven't also really touched it for a while, as obviously the main part of the game is a much higher priority. This video is actually delayed a bit because I opened this after a year and a half and found that the crafting system wasn't really working anymore. There were definitely some problems in the placement mechanics to the point where I needed to redo the placement for I think the 4th time now. How this mechanic will be used is primarily in crafting quests. Someone will ask you if you can make them a model of something, and you then enter the wagon of your trade, where your workshop will be. Interacting with this table will take you into the crafting screen, where you can then choose a quest to work on. There will be certain requirements that the person is asking for, like if they ask for a specific model of something, but how these requirements will come into play is yet to be decided. As with many things in this game, everything I've said so far? It could change, I don't know. You can also build things outside of quests too, if you want to create something of your own. Oh, and I've also made it possible for you to save your creations, with the idea that you can share your creations with others. I think it will be really cool to see the different creations that people make, and I really can't wait. But that's it for now. Hopefully now when you send Railway Life's Steam page to a friend for them to wishlist, and they ask, what can you do in the game? You'd be able to give them enough info for them to be like, oh, that sounds cool, I'm going to wishlist the game and get notified when it comes out. And hopefully you've given them such a great rendition that they even go as far as, wow, I'm really excited for this game. I'm going to go to the Mashup Games YouTube channel and hitting subscribe, and I'm going to like this video to show that I really liked what my friend told me about this game. But yeah, sorry this video took so long. I'll try not to take 3 months for the next one, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. See you next time. Bye!